Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you probably know that I am in the middle of a year-long Deccan walk on the channel, which I called a different kind of Deccan walk, because I'm using different associations from the other Deccan walks you will see on the YouTube sphere, on the tarot tube, as they say, yes? But this video is not part of that series. We are here in the middle of the third Decan of Taurus, and I've already got that video up on the channel, so go check that out if you want. What I'm doing now, because I've got a little bit of extra time, because I can film videos once a week in my schedule this semester at school, and the Decans are 10-day long stretches, so every 3 weeks there ends up being an extra day that I can use to do an extra video. And so I'm doing a video on which is part of my series called 2 Layers of Practice. If you've seen other videos of that series, you know what I'm talking about. Just in case you haven't, this is a series in which I pull a spread and I read it in 2 different ways. First, I read it the way that I would generally teach my mentees, my tarot mentees, how to read a spread. Yeah, basics. And then I go back and I read the same spread in a more esoteric way, which is helpful for me because it gives me the additional practice of using the associations that I have rediscovered for myself for the tarot. Yeah, and if you're wondering about those associations, why I have come up with the associations that I have and how I'm using the information that came to me through various sources, I will have a card up here so that you can hop on over and take a look at that series. That's a whole playlist, and if you're interested, go check that out. Yes? But what I'm going to do is I am going to answer a question that I generally ask on this channel when I'm just laying a normal spread, as opposed to part of the Decan walk. When I'm just laying a normal spread, the question I ask is, how can we live our lives more intentionally in the coming week? Yes? And so, for this series, what I do is I have chosen an oracle deck for this week, and I will have that oracle deck respond to that question. And looking at that response from that oracle deck, I will come up with another question, perhaps a more specific question, and pull a 3-card spread to answer that question. Yes? And then I'll read those 3 cards in those 2 ways that I mentioned. So I've got our spreads already prepared. I've taken notes, but I have not actually read the spreads yet. We're going to do that here live together. First, let me say thank you. Thank you for doing all of those things that you do. Thank you for watching this video. That is a blessing. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up button. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Those things that you do tell YouTube to show this channel and this video to other people, and more people join the community, the journey. We're in it together, and it's all because of you. So thank you for doing those things. And thank you to those of you who comment on the videos. You are a true blessing. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, children of all ages, we're ready to start. So, the question again, the first question, how can we live our lives more intentionally? And because this is the third Decan of Taurus, I added that on to the question, how can we live our lives more intentionally for the rest of this Taurus season? Does that make sense? So let's see what the oracle deck gave us this week. Here it is. Isn't this a gorgeous card? I love the colors. This card here is from a deck called the Spirit Animal Oracle by Baron-Reid. And it's a wonderful oracle. I find it very well organized. It's a system in and of itself. And it seemed to be really appropriate for the Tauran season. Yes, Taurus, enjoyment of nature, enjoyment of all creatures in nature, enjoyment of being in bodies, yes? So, this seemed like a really good deck for the end of Taurus. It's lush, it's gorgeous, it's rich in color, texture, in life. It's fabulous. And the card that came out, the card that we got in response to how can we live our lives more intentionally in the rest of this Taurus season was Lizard Spirit, which was actually a little bit of a surprise. Part of me half hoped that Cow Spirit or something like that would have appeared, but instead we've got Lizard Spirit. What does that mean? Well, I don't know if you can see at the bottom of the card there is a little, it's not a key word, but it's a small, what do we call those things? It's not a sentence, it's not a phrase, it's just a small thing. Yes, vocabulary is gone. It says, dream the world into being. Oh, I guess that is an imperative. Yes, I was just teaching imperatives last week. It's an imperative, dream the world into being. How does that relate to Taurus? Well, Taurus enjoys embodying things, right? Things coming into being, things manifesting. So that idea of bringing thought into form, I guess it does feel somewhat Tauran. Yeah, whereas Gemini might be more dream your dreams, expand your vision, right? Bring your dreams into manifestation, dream the world into being may be a Tauran thing to do. So maybe this is pretty appropriate, more appropriate than I actually initially thought it would be. And Colette Baron-Reid points to things like she asks us, when was the last time we allowed ourselves to take the time to relax and daydream? Taking time, relaxing. Those are very Tauran things to do. So that's a good question for us. As we conclude the Tauran season, we want to take the time to dream our dreams, to enjoy dreaming the dream. Yes? It's time to let our imagination flow and dream something new into being. She also says that if we can slow down, very Tauran, inspiration is available to us. So we want to go at our own pace. We don't want to feel rushed or pushed, right? And if we do relax into our own pace, we can feel the inspiration that is always here for us to energize us into motion as we live our intentional lives. But we want to open and be relaxed to let it appear and to make possible our dreaming mind as we can open into making the things we dream real into the world, and we can co-create with spirit. Because everything that we do is a co-creation. A co-creation with other living beings in the world, but also a co-creation with the divine, with spirit, with our eternal natures, with our collective eternal natures, with the oneness that is all, yes? So we want to not try to force it. We don't want to try to make it happen. We want to relax into and open to the possibility of allowing ourselves to be inspired by our own dreams, by the life force within us to manifest those things that we're dreaming into being? Can we allow ourselves to pursue our dreams? That's another question. Yes? Can we allow ourselves to move in the direction of what we want to experience in the world? How can we grow and expand by believing in what we cannot rationally understand? Is that question clear? Yeah? How can we grow and expand by believing in what we cannot rationally understand as a logical progression of time or a logical progression of development or possibility? Can we believe in radical shifts of perception and life in a positive way, in the direction of our dreams? By making things possible in our dreaming mind, we can also open into making it real, or those things real, in the world as we co-create with our spirits, yes? If we give into our imaginations, our dreams will clarify as well. And that's not forcing things into our imaginations by any means, but if we give into them, if we allow ourselves to flow into our daydreams, we'd be surprised at what we can create in the world. And how our daydreams can clarify into new realities in our minds and then eventually into the world. Because how do things get into the world in the first place? First, by thinking and imagining and dreaming them into being. And the steps to materializing, to manifesting those things will become also clearer as we allow ourselves to swim in the waters of those dreams. And what was ephemeral will become more concrete and will come more into form. Spirit asks us to dream big and become large, because to manifest the things that we want to be, we want to become the ones who experience those things we want to experience. That's part of living life intentionally. Yes, it's a path of evolution to become the beings who have the experiences we want to have in the world. So, that is our answer to the question of how can we live life more intentionally in the rest of this Tauran period, in this last Tauran decan. We want to dream life into being. We want to clarify our dreams. We want to swim in our dreams so that we can also perceive the steps that we will want to take to allow the dream to become more concrete, to become more manifest. So that we can allow ourselves to evolve into the beings who will experience those things at our own pace, at our own time, and enjoying the process of the thing coming into material form. That seems like a wonderful and wonder-filled way of a Tauran experiencing life as the Tauran matures into the fullness of their sign, of their zodiacal power. Of what? Of Venus basking in relationship and in the physical sensation. Yes? So, now, how is that a lizard? I don't know. I don't actually understand that really that clearly, but what lizard represents for Colette Baron-Reid really does very clearly seem to match this time and how we can live more intentionally in this time of the zodiacal wheel. Now, friends, from this information, the question that arose for me was, how can we dream into being? How can we dream our dreams into being? Yes? So, oh, and just in case, if you want this deck, there will be a link in the description box below. And the tarot deck that I'm about to show you, unfortunately, will not have a link in the description box because it is way out of print. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry that I chose something that you cannot necessarily get very easily. But it felt really torn to me. And I really wanted to use this deck in this period of decan walking with you. So it felt very torn, and this is the deck I chose. And the question again is, what can we dream into being? Here's the answer. So friends, do you know this deck? And it's here now, yeah? This is called the Majestic Earth Tarot. And it's a beautiful deck. It's by J.D. Hildegard Hinkle. And there are two decks by this creator. I have this one, which was a blessing. I was able to find, there was a short period where some decks that had been damaged, and I put that in quotes because I was able to get one of those damaged decks, and I swear to goodness I cannot see the damage. The box seemed fine, the cards seemed fine, all seemed fine. So I got the deck, and I'm blessed to have gotten that deck. I am very, very happy. And I'm sorry that it would be very difficult for you to get this deck. But there's also another deck that the same creator made called the Tarot of Delphi, which is my unicorn deck. Just saying. I wish I could find a copy of that one. Someday I will. I'm sure. I love what I've seen of that deck at the core of my being. But I also love this deck. I've used it on the channel before, but it's back out because whereas the Oracle deck, that the animals in a rich, colorful environment seemed very Tauran, so does this seem very Tauran, right? It's an earth-based deck, and what are the three earth signs? Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. This doesn't feel Capricorn to me by any means, right? It's not working hard to get up the mountain. And it doesn't feel like it's trying hard to organize things and put things in boxes, and it feels very open and expansive, so it doesn't feel very Virgo to me. It feels Tauran to me. Yeah, there's a slowness, there's a steadiness to the images on this deck. There's artistic beauty, very Venusian, yes? And I love it. Now, you'll notice that there is astrology and element printed on the bottoms of the cards. The elements are fine, yes? Those are the elements I work with, I'm happy. But the astrology printed on the cards, I am not going to use. Just so we're clear, yes? I'm going to continue using the astrological associations that I have rediscovered for myself as I demonstrated in the playlist called Walking the Lines of Origins to Deeper Strata. Yes? So, we're not going to look at the astrology printed on the cards. Generally, in previous and in future years, I will go back and check in with the astrology when it is printed on the card, but for this year, I'm really steadfastly going to stick to the associations that I have rediscovered for myself and maybe for us. Yes? So, just to let you know, fair warning. So what did we get? We got from left to right the Five of Clouds, which would be the Five of Swords, right? It's the Five of Air. Then we got the Eight of Stones, which in a Smith-Waite deck would be the Eight of Pentacles, or in another deck might be the Eight of Discs or Eight of Coins. And then we got the Strength card, which is the Strength card, but instead of 8, I'm going to place the Strength card at 11, where I believe it naturally belongs. Okay? So, just saying. So what do we see in these cards? Yeah? The first card, we see a very, distressed, wind-torn landscape. Yes? In the Five of Clouds, which makes actually good sense for the Five of Swords or the Five of Air. Yes? In the Eight of Stones, we see a castle, we see people working on a wall. It's a beautiful, prosaic scene of people working and building and the things that they have built. Right? And then we've got what looks like an African savanna, yes, with lions there looking at something in the distance with strength. We've got a male lion and a female lion together. They look like a couple to me. We know that the female lions are the hunters and the male lions are generally more lazy, right? But the first thing I would ask all of my students when looking at cards that we've laid out without any positions, now this is not a positional spread, is what is the story? Where is the story? How is the story flowing? Is the story flowing from left to right, from right to left? Is the story emerging from the center, or is it coalescing into the center? Now, there are several ways we can look at reading this set of 3 cards. And with this deck, we don't actually get much of a clue as to line of sight, except for the lions, right? The lions are on the left-hand side of the spread, and they are looking off to the left. So that does give me a little bit of a clue that maybe we're going from left to, I'm sorry, wait a second. So I'm doing a poor job of translating left and right for you right now. Okay, so let me start that again. The lions are on the right side of the spread. This is my left arm, but for you, this is the right, yes, are on the right side of the spread, and they're looking off to the right. So that is an indication for me that we want to read this spread from left to right. Yes? One indication. We also look at element. Yes? So we notice that the first card is air, the second card is earth, the third card is a major arcana. And we could go into the major arcana element. The creator of this deck points to the major arcana as being a fire element, but that's because the creator of this deck is associating this card with a different zodiacal sign than I would be associating it with. Yes? But let's focus on those first 2 very clear elemental signs of earth and air. I'm sorry, air and earth. They are ill-dignified. Yes? Air and earth don't get along. They sap each other's energy. Yeah? Earth will weigh air down. Air will scatter earth. So they're not hunky-dory. They don't go along well together. They don't play well together. Looking at the direction of flow, look at that Five of Clouds card, the Five of Swords. To me, the artwork in that card does seem to lend itself towards a left to right movement. Yeah? You see the tree fell to the right. The clouds seem to me to be moving to the right. The movement of the image in the Eight of Stones card also seems to be moving. I mean, you could think of it, the castle coming down to the water, but to me, as these cards are laid, it almost feels like the air from the Five of Clouds would want to go up from the left to the right in the Eight of Stones card as well, up and over the the rise going up to the castle, right? It seems like the airflow would be up towards the castle rather than down from the castle. Yes? So there are many indications to me in this series of 3 cards that make it really feel like a very left to right read. Yes? Does that make sense? And so, my first layer of reading for these 3 cards would start off with the 5 of Clouds, 5 of Swords, which for me is, it's what? It's mental, verbal, thought conflict, right? 5s are all conflicting, they're disruptive cards. Yes, they're disruptive cards. They can be conflict, they can be breaking down, they can be breaking out. So we start off with the 5 of Air, and we can see what I said, breaking down, right? That tree has been broken down by the air, by the thoughts, by communication. So there's a breakdown here, there's a collapse, there's a destructive quality to our minds and the way we're communicating. Yes? So we start with that, and we then move into doing the work of the 8 of Stones, 8 of Pentacles. Yeah, we see the workers there building a wall. But it's not necessarily a wall to defend against. It could be the wall of a structure. Yes? The wall of a new wing of the castle. We could be building a new wing to live in for us, for our family, or if we are the kings and queens, these are our workers doing the work of building a new environment for us to exist in. So there's a diligence, there's the work, but there's also the production of something beautiful and strong and enduring and lasting that is happening in that 8 of Stones card. And then we move into the Strength card, which is, if we think of the Smith-Waite deck, we think of the higher mind and the lower mind, the more spiritual self and the more material focused self, and those aspects of being in good harmony and in communication and not letting the wild part get too wild, but being in good relationship. Don't really see that in this card here, right? What I see here is a couple of a powerful couple, a couple of leadership and of strength, right? They work together, they exist together, they have their own roles, and their roles are complementary. And they are the kings of their kingdom. So, in a way, maybe those workers in the 8 of Stones are building the structure for those 2 lions, the kings of their kingdoms. And we become the masters of our kingdoms with our own maybe internal cooperation, but also maybe cooperation with other people. Yeah, I have my role of strength, you have your role of strength. Together we are stronger. So how is that answering the question of what can we dream into being? Well, what we can dream into being is, after the destruction that we may have been experiencing or that we are experiencing now in our daily lives, and maybe we are experiencing a lot of destruction of communication, of ideas, but maybe even war, yes? From that, we can rise up in the 8 of Stones and do the work of construction or even reconstruction. Yeah, building the dream that we had been dreaming, which had been disrupted by that 5 air, Five of Clouds card, right? We can now start building that up, building that dream. And as that dream is built, is manifested brick by brick, we can come into our power of co-creating with others and also co-creating with spirit. But first, we've got to get through and get beyond that destructively communicative, that destructive communication and destructive ideation and destructive thinking processes that we might be in the midst of right now. Now, if we go to the guidebook, which I like to refer to if I can, and this guidebook is actually quite nice. For the Five of Clouds card, yeah, the creator says this is a storm, and a storm crashes into a mountain and devastated a conifer here. That's the tree, right? Clouds look like obsessive thoughts, reliving the confrontation of what has happened. So there's also the idea of, yeah, we've fought, we've been in conflict, but because we keep reliving and rethinking that conflict, that pattern just continues, right? Because some of our interactions in the world are bringing storms and conflict. Now, the art on this card, just in case you're curious, is called Storm in the Mountains. It's by Frederick Edward Church from 1847. Good to know. Beautiful card. And do you see the little bit, I don't know if you see, the tree that has been broken, right? You can see how in part of the broken bits, what looks like maybe the inside of bark. Do you see that orangish red tint? That it looks like there's a fire inside of that tree that could be ready to burst forth. And that fire could be expressed in the strength card at the end of the spread, right? But first we got to do the work. And we go to the Eight of Stones card, or the Eight of Pentacles, Eight of Discs, Eight of Coins. The guidebook says chiseled blocks turned into the structure of society. Now we do the work to make the structure for our social interactions. Focused engagement of working in a speciality and applying our skill. Yeah, so it's doing that work. Remember on the Smith weight deck, we got the guy sitting on the bench making 8 pentacles, right? It's basically that same idea. Our focused work and using our speciality and applying our skill. Sure, yeah, that's part of our method of manifestation. And the picture here is titled Durham Cathedral from Prebend's Bridge. And it was painted by George Farrell Robinson in the early 1800s. Yeah, so this painting is before the painting in the first card. Yes? And then for the strength card, the guidebook says, vitality and endurance are intrinsic to us. We have the power, the strength to do what we want to do. We are being completely who we are without intellectualizing fear or doubt. Yeah, we're just being who we are. And that is the final step of being able to manifest our dreams into realities, by just being who we are, without overthinking, without being afraid that things will go wrong, without doubting our ability to do what we want to do. We want to have belief. We want to have faith in ourselves and in our co-creative capacity with each other and with the divine. We want to trust our inner guidance. And that was part of that message from the Oracle deck as well, right? Trusting our inner guidance. A very powerful message, I think. And if you want to know the art is called Lion and Lioness. It's by Wilhelm Kuthert in the late 1800s or early 1900s. There's no specific date for this painting either. But beautiful art, beautiful, beautiful art. Okay, friends, what am I going to do? Now, I mean, do you understand that message or the answer to our question? What can we dream into being? Well, we can dream anything into being. The way this is telling us how to do that, yeah? We dream into being by moving past the conflict, the destructive tendencies we have with our minds and our words, moving into doing our skill, whatever that is. And your skill is probably going to be different from mine, but we want to apply our skill, our intrinsic abilities. Not trying to take on the whole project at once, but doing the daily work of applying our skill, applying our skill, applying our skill, yes? And as such, we then can inhabit the fullness of ourselves, and it's when we have inhabited the fullness of our evolving selves that the manifestation is now going to be much more possible by believing in ourselves and trusting our abilities and the guidance that is available to us once we do trust in ourselves. Does that make sense? Okay, friends, so we're ready for another layer of reading. If you're still interested in hanging out with me, what I will do is I'll show you these 3 cards up close again so you can take a look at what we just talked about, a little refresher, and we'll get into the esoteric significance of this spread. Are you ready? Here are the cards once more. Friends, are you ready? So, I think we're going to start reading this spread in the exact same direction that we talked about earlier. We're going to read from left to right. Yes, for the reasons that I mentioned. Yeah, the images are still directing how we're going to read the astrology. Now, if you are interested in seeing another way to organize the information, if we look at the esoteric associations, and I'll have the Tree of Life here on the side, yeah, we've got the 5 of Swords and the 8 of Pentacles both on the same side of the Tree of Life. They're both on the left-hand side of the Tree of Life. And then the Strength card is on the right-hand side of the Tree of Life and the center. So there's that feeling of moving. So if we're looking at moving into manifestation, right? The 5 of Swords is up in Gevra. The 8 of Pentacles is down in Hod, right? So there's a progression of going down and then maybe to the right with Tiphereth and with Strength being in both Tiphereth and in the connection between Chesed and Netzach. You can see that the whole thing does still, although you can see that the whole thing does revolve, you could say, around Tiphereth here as the hub of a kind of wheel in the lower part of the Tree of Life, yes? There's an upper wheel which revolves around a missing Sephirot, which is Da'at, which would be in the center between Keter and Tiphereth, yeah? But that has disappeared as the tree fell. That's a whole other conversation. But there's an upper wheel, with nothing at the center, with Keter, Chokmah, Chesed, Tifereth, Gevurah, Binah. If you go in a clockwise circle, that's an upper wheel. And then there's the lower wheel, which goes Chesed, Netzach, Yesod, Hod, Gevurah, with Tifereth in the center. I don't know if you can see that. If you can't see that, ask me and I will upload that highlighted for you in later on. Okay? So ask and you shall receive. So I really think we're going to read left to right still. So what does that give us? Well, we'll start off with the Five of Air. Yes, the Five of Swords. Which for me is the second decan of Aquarius. So it's keyed to Gemini, which gives us Mercury in Aquarius. Now remember, okay, something that's really interesting about this spread is that the first two cards, the two minor arcana cards, both have Saturn and Mercury in relationship for one reason or another. Yes? Saturn and Mercury are in cahoots, but in a little bit of a conflicting way. So we have Mercury in Aquarius with the Five of Clouds. Aquarius is naturally ruled by Saturn, so they're together. And we have the mutable aspect of fixed air's vital attributes entering our spread right at the beginning. Fives are all Gevurah, so that's the Sephiroth of severity, of rules and regulations and structure and judging good and bad and yes, right and wrong and harshness a little bit. Yes? So that harshness really works well for the Five of Swords, the Five of Air. Upright, I would say things like challenged detachment. Yeah? There's a desire to take a step back, but there's also the challenge of when things don't look right, I'm going to go in and fight it. Yeah? I'm going to make sure everybody knows that this is wrong. Now, people with Mercury in Aquarius, they have quick, intuitive minds, right? They're scientific. They're interested in occult studies. They're adaptable, intellectually adaptable. They are intense and curious. And they have the desire to know and understand. I've got to figure this out. I've got to know what this is. What's going on? But that adaptability of Mercury in the fixedness of Aquarius is there's a discomfort and a dis-ease there, right? But still, that rubbing against the fixedness of Aquarius gives inspiration. Now, friction can cause a spark of inspiration. There's an eagerness, but there's a nervousness. There's an excitability, and that excitability can be used for both good and for bad, right? I get excitable and I might lash out when I'm angry. But I get excitable and I might go, hey, let's do this, right? Like a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old on a good day and a 5-year-old on a bad day. Okay? A 5-year-old, Five of Swords, a Five of Air. They might not have the best tact, which can get themselves and other people into trouble when they're trying to satisfy their curiosity. They're just going to ask the question whether it's the right time to ask or not, or it's the right person to ask or not. Hey, Mom, why is Dad spending so much time with that other lady, for example? Or, hey, Dad, why is Mom spending so much time with that other lady, for example? And there's a nonconformist quality to Mercury in Aquarius, yes? So they're not going to go along to get along, which could get them into trouble. So what conflict or pressure is testing my thinking with the Five of Swords? So there's conflict still in the esoteric world, in the Five of Air, and it's testing my mental acuity, it's testing what I understand and how I've organized myself in the world. Now, because it's the second decan, we have Saturn in its complement, which is Cancer. Yes, Saturn in Cancer, they're also got a little bit of a, I don't know about being in all this water, right? Saturn's very happy in the air and it's happy in the earth. Plunged into the waters of Cancer, it's a little bit, I don't know. Yeah? So our thoughts are forced to acknowledge their feelings. Mercury in Aquarius is not necessarily interested in talking about how other people feel about things, right? But now with Saturn here in Cancer, they're forced to think about how other people feel. And our mental defenses could be tested here. Structures are challenged by suddenly feeling vulnerable. Yeah? And when we feel vulnerable, Saturn might want to lash out. So there's a cognitive discomfort here that is also indicated by the Five of Air. So we're not comfortable in our heads. We're curious, we've got to know things, and we might not be the best at asking the right questions at the right times to the right people. Right? We're inspired. We're a little bit nervous. We're a little bit edgy. We're not following along with everybody else. And that could cause conflict. And that conflict is testing our thinking. And that's not comfortable for Mercury people in Aquarius. It's got to be figured out. And I got to talk about it. I don't care if you think it's the right time. I don't care if it hurts your feelings. I don't care. We got to figure this out. Right? So we start off with this challenge. And then we move into the Eight of Earth, which is also a Saturn and Mercury relationship. Why? Because the Eight of Earth is Virgo. It's the second decan of Virgo. We've got another second decan, right? We've got Virgo keyed to Capricorn. And Capricorn's ruler is Saturn. So now we have Saturn in Virgo. We had Mercury in a Saturn sign, and now we've got Saturn in a Mercury sign, because Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, right? And so we've got the cardinal aspect of mutable Earth entering our spread. The cardinal aspect of mutable Earth with Saturn in Virgo. And the 8 is keyed to this with Hod, which to me is surrender. You surrender to what is. Okay, so we've got the challenges, we've got the severity of Gevurah, and Hod says, okay, I surrender to it. I'm not going to fight it. I will find my way through and around and over or under, but I will find my way. I'm not going to challenge what is. I'm not going to fight what is. I'm going to accept what is and keep on moving on. Does that make sense? So the 8 of Stones, or 8 of Pentacles, upright, is meaningful effort. The work I do, I want it to have meaning for me. I'm not just doing the work to do the work. I want it to be meaningful. So people with Saturn in Virgo, they are hardworking. They're anxious for success, which is that Capricorn quality entering Virgo, right? Teaching. They like to teach. They've got it all organized and they want to transmit that organized information to other people. Their minds are organized. They're concentrated. And they seem to have endless patience for details, Virgo, right? And performing precise tasks. Mercury in Virgo. That's we've still got Mercury influencing this. They're interested in experience. They want to have the experience of doing and being in the world. And they might lack a little bit of self-confidence and spontaneity because they don't have, while there is that cardinal aspect, the mutable Virgo is a little bit critical of self and the work that they're doing. So there might be a little bit of lack of confidence that the Saturnian Capricorn feels with the cardinal aspect, yes? Being in a mutable environment. A question, I'm sorry, let's see. But they're spontaneous, yes. The Mercury is still here giving us a little bit of spontaneity. And they will apply what they have thought rather than think about what they've thought more, right? They're ready to and interested in, I got an idea, let's put it into practice. So that's the flow of these ideas that came from the conflict and the discomfort of the Five of Swords. Now let's put it into practice. Let's find something to do with these ideas. Yes? Now we have a question here. What focused effort or skill is required now? After this conflict, after we've gotten ourselves out of this conflict, what do I want to focus on? Is our first question. And we've got Mercury in its complement, which would be Sagittarius. Yeah? So our skill is guided by purpose now. The purpose-driven Sagittarius. Our work is aligned with our vision of our philosophical vision of what is good in the world, what is right in the world, what direction is correct and for the benefit of us and for the collective. We learn through applying our ideas rather than thinking about them, right? And our craft is connected to meaning rather than ars gratia artis, yeah, art for art's sake. It's art because it has purpose and meaning and a reason in the world, which follows our philosophical direction for our lives. Yes? And that philosophical direction, yeah, Gevra and Hod, severity and surrender, are pointing us towards beauty and strength and the connection of our loving kindness and victory with the strength card. The strength card. Because for me, strength being originally the 11th card is associated with the Hebrew letter Kef, which kind of looks like this. You can see it here on the Tree of Life, maybe. Hopefully it's big enough for you to see. I'm sorry, not Kef, Kaf. And it kind of looks like this. And Kaf is associated with two things. One, it's the connection between Chesed and Netzach. So it's the connection between loving kindness and victory on the Tree of Life. But it's also associated with this planet, or the light in the sky, the sun. And because it's the sun, we also have Tipreth in the center, lit up with the strength card. Now, because it's associated with the Hebrew letter Kaf, we have things, this isn't the Hebrew letter for that which is ancient, the very, very old, the ancient. It's the bend and curve from the shape of the palm, yeah, the hand grasping things, right? Or the body bent over in humility also, yeah? So there's the power and capacity that we have to tame or to subdue with the hand, but also the need to bend ourselves modestly, and accept others. So we have the power, but we're also bent in humility. And it's that relationship of power and humility that is highlighted in the Strength card. We also have the rune Isaz, right? So the 11th rune would be Isaz, which kind of looks like a capital letter I. And it's, interestingly, the symbol for ICE, not ICE, the governmental agency in the United States, which does bad things in the world, according to me, but rather ice, like hard, cold water, ice. Which is actually, in the good sense, it's an indication of rest. Also willpower and concentration. Also a standstill, right? Ice doesn't move very quickly. Waiting, pausing. So it could also be an indication of physical or psychological barriers, but I don't see that here in this spread today. I think we're seeing our willpower, our concentration, our ability to wait and pause for the right time. Yes? Now, the Strength card being associated to the sun gives us this reliability of the sun. The sun always rises, yes? The sun also rises, but yes, the sun always rises and sets in a predictable pattern. It's faithful. It gives faithful service to humanity at God's bidding. This is Hebrew interpretations of this heavenly body. There's righteousness and wisdom of the sun. So we are righteous, we have wisdom, we are reliable, we are dependable, we are just, we will shine more and more unto the perfect day. That's a quote from the resources I was looking at about the sun in Hebrew astrology. Yeah, shining more and more unto the perfect day. It's powerful, it's beautiful, Tipreth, and consistent. It's a consistent instrument of God's glory and of God's providence and God's promise of giving life to us and to the planet. Yeah? So we move through our we move from the disruption of the mind to doing the work, doing the tasks, organizing, expressing, guided by our purpose, enjoying our experience, being patient, being willing to teach, getting our minds and ideas and our dreams organized, as we then are able to embody them in the world as emissaries of the divine here in the world, yes? As we shine more and more unto the perfect day. And that progression of shining more and more is the manifestation of our inner light here in the world. And therefore, we manifest our dreams in the world as well. By being powerful, by being beautiful, by being consistent, we then are able to manifest the beautiful, the powerful, the consistent in our experience. Does that make sense? Yes? And so, perhaps, are you experiencing difficulties in the world around you? Do you experience things like conflict and conflict in physical conflict, but also conflict of ideas, conflict of words, verbal fighting? Are you experiencing that in the world around you? That doesn't mean we have to get stuck there, right? This spread is telling us that we can move through and past that. And it gives us a method of doing that. And I think it's a powerful idea for us to absorb and to hopefully embody here in the world as we move through the rest of this Taurus decan. So friends, I hope that this is meaningful for you. I hope that it is sensible to you. And I'd love to hear from you. So let me know in the comments below. Again, I'm sorry that this deck here is not available for you, but hopefully you can enjoy seeing the cards and maybe working with them through and with me. And if you've got a different idea or a different way you'd want to read this spread, let me know. Let us know. Share your ideas. So thank you. Thank you very much, friends, for coming with me through this journey. And now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.